Well, hey there. I thought I would do something different this morning. Often I write a blog on Sundays or an essay, some kind of commentary on some things I'm pondering about. The latest ones I've done are entitled, it's a kind of a series called The Cauldron Precedes the Cross. And it's really about just how deep our intuitivity goes on the participation of the sacred feminine in history and in the world. And so I wanted to play a song today that tells the story of the Maidens of the Wells. And it's an ancient story. Some say it goes all the way back to Mesopotamia. And that means usually that we're talking about the root systems of agriculture and the different types of cultures that arose out of the development of agriculture. And this has to do with our relationship to the land and the water. And often when we think about that, there is definitely an element to this that really senses a loss or a lack of integration of an ancient, primordial, sacred, feminine aspect to the world. And so I'm seeing a lot of interesting conversations these days, or hopefully they're conversations. Sometimes it's just these mocking each other back and forth. But it's kind of around a lot of women who feel like they've done a lot of work for the rights of women, and they feel like their work is under threat because there's like kind of a younger generation of women that are kind of in this stay-at-home mom movement. And right from the get-go, I just want to say to each their own. But what I'm noticing myself about all of these conversations is that I think we're remembering, kind of half remembering. And if we could whole remember, there might be a more easeful conversation. So for instance, I was in the music business for well over 10 years. I opened for most of my heroes. I traveled 19 countries. I was, internationally growing and working with Grammy-winning producers and signed to record labels and publishing deals and had booking agents and all the rest of it. And I noticed something about myself and about the way that the industry was working at that time. And I wanted to have children. And even to suggest that I wanted to have children, I was frowned upon by some people who thought, that's kind of the sacrifice you make as a woman if you want to be a successful touring artist and songwriter. And that was one of the many reasons. Also, I started to realize that in the entertainment industry, predominantly, unless you're in pockets of Nashville, you're experiencing a left-wing version of the patriarchy. And a lot of people don't realize that exists, and it does. And it doesn't erase, it doesn't say to suggest that it exists on this side, doesn't erase the fact that it also exists on the right. And that's something, we have to start thinking that it can be over here and it can be over here. But I think the conversation needs to go deeper, and we need to remember more deeply. And so that's why I wrote these essays called The Cauldron Precedes the Cross, because I was looking at this sacrificial moment of bursting the alabaster jar open, and how this moment is primordial. And it was also risking like a self-emptying. And then we have the cross event, and we put a lot of emphasis afterwards on the cross event particularly once it was funneled into the Greco-Roman mindset, and we poured all of our magnifying through a magnifying glass, and even to the point where in the 3rd and 4th century, Yeshua, Jesus, was called the Sol Invictus, which was a Roman sun god. And the lunar aspect, the feminine aspect, continually was stripped and erased as the canons were hammered out and the creeds. And so that moment of the alabaster jar, which we were told to remember, FYI, was intentionally forgotten in many ways. And I really think that the maladaptive behaviors of the West that we're seeing right now are connected to us not remembering all the way down about that. And we're actually speaking a similar language more than we realize. It's just that we're so entrained in duality, in the sense of this camp and this camp, and then we fight each other like this, and we don't realize that energy is energy, and often we're contributing to the same egregore, this ball of energy that gets co-created. And so if we could actually recognize that energy is energy, and we can remember all the way down, we have so much to work with, so much energy. We could charge the whole planet. And so that's kind of the work that I'm doing. And I'm just going to play this song, Maidens of the Wells, which I think really touches the root systems, because the women at the wells in this song and in this story that goes so far back are they have, like, what I would say, a voluptuous hospitality, a sensual hospitality. When they stir the pot, they're not there beholden to this vast patriarchy that developed, but they're there making this kitchen alchemy for the world. And that's something that is hard for us. It's hard for me, because there's a pain that shows up, even though I actually really enjoy doing that. There's a part of me that holds back because of the betrayal that's in this song. When the well maidens offer their silver platters filled with the food that reminds you there's enough. And when you're resting your weary feet, they bring you this goblet. And when you drink from it, you're reminded of the great secret of the wellspring, which is that the water in the wellspring holds all of history. And yet somehow, in this great alchemical secret, it can produce water that's fresh enough to drink. And this is a great mystery, and we've forgotten it. And in fact, some of the actual physical well springs in the West were auctioned off. This is pre-Christian Rome in France area and in Britain, to the highest Roman citizen bidder, as well as when up in Scotland during the height of the puritanical movement, many of the well springs were filled in to prevent especially women from going there with their prayers. So there's so much here. There's so much mystery here. And I really think when we actually get into the kind of underbelly of it, it resonates at a deep level. And so everybody's kind of onto it, but when you only go halfway back, at the exact moment when I would say halfway back is when the sacred feminine began to be erased. And you think that's the great recapitulation or return. That's where things get tricky, and that's where the feminists start to get their red flag up. And also, there's beautiful movements happening that are kind of post-feminist movements that recognize that a lot of kind of hardcore feminism has done a disservice to our bodies. It did a great disservice to mine, I will say. So that doesn't mean I'm dualistic about it. And it doesn't mean that I'm in a relationship where my partner is dominant over me. Decidedly not. So it's just these conversations are interesting to me. So here's the story of the Maidens of the Wells and how their hospitality was betrayed. And I think that when we touch that story, we are touching on the root system of this great maladaptive situation we can see. So. Walk softly to the holy wells, and you'll be fed and watered there, where the maidens dwell. Well, they offered you the plate and cup with their whole wild hearts, and you were bonded to this land like interwoven parts. And you walked with her, she was all you needed. Yeah, you walked with her when the guardians were here. Then one day it struck you, you were not in control. There was something in that water that you weren't allowed to hold. So you pursued and you subdued like a sporting hunter with his game. And she looked at you with sadness as you took your aim. And you walked alone, the master of the wasteland. Yeah, you walked alone when the guardians were gone. Oh, 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 oh. And you woke up the next morning with no one in your bed. The scent of wild was gone, and your world was safe instead. For a while you longed for her as she still longs for you. Then you forgot your longing like an ache that's on the move. But you still long for her, the grail, the cup, the flame. Yeah, you long for her, the land you tried to claim. Yeah, you long for her, you thirst for her, you ache for her in your whole body. Thank you for watching.